and welcome to the. Do I need to repeat that? Okay. For those who don't know me, my name is Tom Coates, and welcome to the December 17, 2022 monthly meeting of the Richmond Ions Community Group, Central Virginia Ions Community Group, as the case may be. Ions, as most of you know, is an organization that was founded in 1973 by Edgar Mitchell, who was the Apollo lunar landing module pilot for Apollo 14, and like many of those who walked on the moon in those days, had his own takeaway from the experience. His was a unity consciousness experience that occurred as he was on his way back to Earth in the capsule, and he resolved at that moment to dedicate the rest of his life to exploring the frontiers of consciousness, especially the interface between science and spirit. And Ions, with the help of a large donor that he was a friend of at that time, was founded on that premise in 1973 and has existed ever since on that basis, headquartered in Petaluma, California. And we are one of a couple of hundred community groups around the world, most of which are in the United States, but there are a number in Europe, a number in Australia, mostly in the English-speaking world, but they're not exclusively there. I think there's one in Hong Kong and maybe some in India, and we have been blessed to have been around now for. This meeting will complete our 27th year, I think, and we'll be celebrating our 27th anniversary next month. But we've been around continuously for longer than most of these groups are able to survive, and we've been lucky in that and blessed in that because so many people have supported our group through the years, both as members of our steering committee and as people who come to our meetings, and we've. Unlike most, we have survived the COVID epidemic or pandemic, as it should be called, and we have a nice crowd here today. We of course went without meeting in person when the ability to do that was stopped by the government in March 2020, but we continued meeting on Zoom, or we discovered Zoom and then continued meeting after that. And then in June of 2021, we started resuming in-person meetings and combined them with Zoom because we had picked up a number of supporters from distant places by being on Zoom during that interim period. We have had from time to time technical difficulties with Zoom. We apologize for that. We would appreciate feedback on that from those who are listening on Zoom. And even today, we had a problem that will come out in the course of the talk. There was some displays that most of you know, I am about as untechnically oriented as any human that lives in a civilized world, and don't have a computer in my office. My closest contact with the computers is my smartphone, and I still don't really halfway know how to operate that. But anyway, we had some displays that apparently are not going to be able to be put up because they were done in what landscape version across, so they would fit better across the screen, and they apparently can't be displayed that way. They would be upside down or sideways or whatever. So rather than now, Dan, should we put them up so people after can they turn them at home or no? I don't know. They can. Okay. Well, maybe we do.
They can as long as you want to pay Adobe $20 a month.
Well, we did that, but we couldn't get. I just did that half an hour ago, and we still couldn't get it to go through, right? So anyway, So our organization is blessed with lots of support and also occasional technical difficulties, and that's just the way it is. Anyway, what other announcements do we have? I want to announce that Robert has got his book book exchange. We've got a bunch of books that have been brought in by people every month, starting last month. Anybody who wants a free book, come in, grab a book off the table in the back of the room. You have to be here in person to take advantage of this wonderful opportunity. But and bring any books that you have that you think you maybe want to part with or can bear to part with, and others will pick up them. And one of these days I might bring a truck in and just stick it out in the back so people can take what I got, but we'll see. Oh yeah, donations. We depend on the donations of our members and those in person and those on Zoom to be able to pay our rent and run our programs and so forth. And so we have a love offering basket here in the room, and that will be passed around at some point during the meeting. We ask people to give from the point where the intersection of the bottom of their hearts and the deepest portion of their wallet at the bottom of their hearts will take them to, and put that in the basket, and whatever you put will be fine. If it's nothing, or if it's something, or if it's very, very generous, whatever, it doesn't matter. Everybody is welcome here, whether they're able to donate or not, and we don't have, the only criteria for membership in our organization is just showing up, whether you're here in person or online. I also want to announce that we have all of our speakers booked for 2023, and we have a wonderful lineup. We have at least one in the room here, and it is we've got the first 4 of those speakers listed at the bottom of the flyer for today, but in any event, we have a I think a really spectacular lineup of speakers for 2023. Most of them will be in person. There will be some on Zoom because obviously, as we've discovered through the last couple of years, that there are a number of speakers that are quite good that we cannot get here in person because we simply couldn't afford it. But we want to hear from them anyway, and Zoom has given us an opportunity to do that. And so I think, any other announcements we got? Oh, I know, one other. We have, as I mentioned last month, we have a new speaker series in collaboration with the Sanctuary of Earth organization that Susanna Calvert has founded, and that series is on the first Wednesday evening of each month from 7 to 8:30 Eastern Time, and it's only on Zoom. It's not in person. So the next one is coming up on the 4th of January. I can't remember the name of the speaker, but the flyer for that will go out early next week, and we invite everyone who can to join us on that as well. So it's a different series that is specifically directed towards spiritual practice rather than spiritual theories and so forth. Okay, that's all for now on that. In terms of today's presentation, it is the subject of joy, and it's going to be how do we say this? Co-done by my good friend Taliesen St. Clair, who most of you know as me, and also by my extra special friend Isabel Pinto, and who has been in Richmond for the last 5 years, and I was very, very fortunate to meet her a little over a year ago, and we've become quite good friends ever since then. And And so our subject today is what we call the first principle: bring more joy to your world, and so it'll be on that, and that's why we started with what hopefully some of you recognized as Beethoven's Ninth Symphony called "Ode to Joy," which I think, especially when the chorus comes in, it always brings me to tears of joy, and so that's why we wanted to start with that one today. And I hope the sound was bearable on the Zoom end of the spectrum today. I guess we're ready to go. So let's see. We'll start with our usual meditation. And I invite everyone to relax, close your eyes if you choose, take a couple of deep breaths. As you relax into that, picture or visualize someone you know and love who is going through some kind of suffering, an illness, a loss, depression, pain, anxiety, fear, whatever. As you breathe in, imagine all of that person's suffering in the form of dark, black, smoke-like, tar-like, thick, heavy clouds entering your nostrils, traveling down into your heart. Hold that suffering in your heart. Then on the out breath, take all of your peace, all of your freedom, all of your health, all of your goodness, all of your virtue, and all of your love, and send it out to that person in the form of healing, liberating light. Imagine they take it all in and feel completely free, released, happy, and joyful. Do that for 3 breaths. Then imagine the town or city that person is in. And on the in-breath, take in all of the suffering of that town or city and send back all of your health and happiness and love to everyone in it. For 3 more breaths. Then repeat that same breathing in and breathing out for that entire state or country of that person for 3 more breaths. Then repeat that same breathing in, breathing out for all of planet Earth and for Earth itself. And that because we're expanding, let's take 5 breaths this time. Then repeat that same procedure, this time for the entire universe, all of creation as we know it. 5 more breaths. as you do this, feel the joy that was evident in that symphony we just listened to, and allow that to seep through your entire being, and allow that to radiate out around you, and know that that is your primary way of being in this world and every other. Take a couple more deep breaths and come back to the room. Good morning, everyone. Those who know me know that I talk about a little bit a different angle on the same subject every year, year after year after year. And that is, who are we? What are we? What are we doing here? All those questions with answers much simpler than we can recognize with our intellect and all that. And no matter how many times we ask them, no matter how many ways we try to answer them, for me, they never seem to get old. I opened last year by saying what we have, what our lives are. Hey, Rob, good to see you. Is just a big love story, and that really is what it is, from my perspective. Sometimes it doesn't seem that way, but I think that's what, for really all of us, it is. Dan, can you reach that baby picture? All right. Well, you got it? Oh my gosh, it's the wrong direction. Okay. Maybe I probably look better in this picture than I do look today. This picture was taken about 1945 when I was about a year and a half old, something like that. And I put it up simply because when we're at that age of our lives, we are too young to know that we can't do this and can't do that. We're too young to have been programmed, if you will, the way we get programmed as we go through life. And we are in our basic element of joy, and this happens. I don't have very many pictures of myself at that age, but it's not at all unusual to see a picture of a child that age who is full of joy, and that is somewhat evident in this picture. Algo, when your baby comes in a few months, you're gonna experience this firsthand for yourself, and you'll find that the joy of a child is infectious for all of us, even because we're not it passes our understanding. And I put this up only not to show myself off. It's the only baby picture I could find last night, but simply because I ask everyone as we go through this discussion today to use what the Buddhists call beginner's mind. And this is what that is. This is beginner's mind. And allow the information or allow the experience of what we do here today to be taken in, not through belief, not through judgment, just to be there and be with it and enjoy with it, and to enjoy it, because that's our, as far as I'm concerned, our first principle. I I saw something on the internet last night that really caught my attention. It was that a year or so ago, some scientists, physicists, conducted, and it was an article about the fact that about a year ago, some physicists conducted an experiment where they were trying their best within a laboratory setting to duplicate the conditions they believed were present in the Big Bang, and to see if their suppositions about that, about how things would happen after the Big Bang or in the moment of the Big Bang was correct. And they believe that they have done that. They believe now they did that. But there's one major element that came through that was a total surprise, and that was, let's see, I wrote down the exact words from the article. The basic nature of the interactions within the hot, dense medium we created, or at least the manifestation of it, changes depending on the angle at which it's viewed. So and this is confounding the physicists, but it's to the layperson, then maybe they'll come up with another explanation. It seems to confirm the quantum observer effect, and so it's reminiscent of a dream I had just a couple of months ago. I mentioned it in a question in the last meeting, and I don't remember the details of it, but what I do remember is that there was a dream in which in this dream, it was quite a lucid dream, I had 4 different experiences. And I had someone who was sort of like I was at camp, and there was a camp counselor who was directing the experiences. And perhaps it was a spirit guide, who knows. But in any event, I had the 4 different experiences were the same experience repeated 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, then the 4th time. But they were different because in each experience, I was instructed to adopt a different perspective about the experience. And so it became a totally different experience each time it occurred. And it went from very, very positive on one hand to middle of the road to very, very negative. And they were mixed up. So it wasn't like it went from one extreme all the way to the other. But what the lesson was that it is our perspective on most everything that creates the quality of the content of the experiences, even if the content itself does not specifically change. And it's I think pretty darn interesting that this physics experiment about the creation of the universe shows exactly the same thing. As most of you know, I always like to have a couple of stories in my talks, and a couple that have come to my attention. One of the things I love about I'm not fond of the of some of the media on the internet, but there are some wonderful stories you can pick up there. One that I saw recently involved a penguin who was injured and was taken in by a man in a small village south of Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, and the man nursed the penguin back to health over the course of a number of months, and then put the penguin off, and he went off to sea. Well, the penguins, as you know, migrate to Antarctica and so forth, and so this man never expected to see the penguin again, but that was a number of years ago. Every year, the penguin swims back to visit the man at the village in Brazil to again show his bond of love and friendship and gratitude and appreciation for the fact that the man saved his life. That's a 5,000-mile transit, by the way, to get there. And so it's a remarkable illustration of the connection of all beings with each other. And perhaps even more remarkable one involves another internet story about a fellow named Arnold Pointer, who is a fisherman in Australia. Arnold Pointer, a number of years ago, had a 20-foot-long great white shark that got caught up in one of his nets. And he spent several hours freeing the shark from the net. And we think of a great white shark as a mindless, conscienceless, perpetual eating machine, and which we want to avoid at all costs. The great white shark that he saved adopted Arnold Pointer. He named her Cindy, by the way, and every day when he goes out from his estuary, the shark meets him at the end of the creek and goes out into the ocean with him and accompanies him, and often will play games where you can go online and see this thing. It's really remarkable. The shark will jump out of the water and he'll pet the shark and so forth. It's a really incredible, amazing bond between the shark and this individual, and it was done. The saving of the shark's life was not done to train the shark; it was just done to save the shark's life, and so it's a wonderful thing. And I think these stories are important because they're so illustrative of the universality of consciousness, and beneath that, the universality of joy in connection between beings. Another couple of things I would suggest for you all on the internet is that, which I've again didn't have access to until I got my smartphone a few years ago, is some of these musical productions have gone viral in the last couple of years and have developed not only musical crazes but dance crazes. One of them is a Pakistani or Indian wedding song called Kala Chashma, and there's many different dance groups that have done this, and some of the more wonderful ones are groups of African kids who do this thing, and they're really they're just spectacular. Another one is a South African singer named Master. His stage name is Master KG. His natural name is too complicated for me to pronounce, but he's got a wonderful song that came out a couple of years ago called Jerusalem, and there have been all sorts of dancings around the world that involve these things, and you cannot watch any of these things without just a smile coming over your face and wanting to move the way they're moving in these videos. Another one is a more recent one by a Nigerian singer along with the Mexican singer Selena Gomez called "Calm Down," and that is equally joyful. So, can you actually put it up? Oh yeah, this is Jerusalem. I love that. Okay, that's enough. They're real short. Okay.
Jerusalema ikhaya lami ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana Jerusalema ikhaya lami.
All right. Thank you, Dan. Marva, what did you say that this? Oh yeah, the groups of whole of airline pilots and stewardesses and yeah, right, yeah, saying this world's not my home. Right. It's a wonderful one, and there are others out there. I highly recommend it for bathroom listening or reading, and or any other time that you want a quick pickup. Uh, now, uh, oh yeah, one thing I often mention in these talks, and I want to mention it today. Uh, if you ever want to know uh, what we call God looks like when it decides to present its or manifest itself in physical form, just look at yourself in the mirror, and you know that. And anytime you look at yourself in the mirror, think about that. Think about there's a psalm in the Old Testament. I think it's 47. It says, "Be still and know that I am God." And it goes on to say, I will be mighty in the earth and all that. I'm not interested in that part. Uh, the uh, the message really is that you should take from it at the next, because many of the teachings in biblical teachings, both Old and New Testament, had layers upon layers of meaning. The message you should take from it at a higher level is be still and know that you are God. Be still and know that when you say I am God, that it is you that you are referring to, because there really is only one of us. There really is only one of us. There's only one being. There's only one consciousness. Each one of us is just a manifestation of that, but it's all one. And so if you're looking at it as at your God as a separate being, then that may seem like a sacrilege. But if you're looking at it from a higher level, it certainly is not. And you will have more joy in your life if you realize that the separation that is entrained into us is not real. So, Dan, I'm going to venture into. Oh, let's first put up the chart from last year. That was Psalm 46, by the way. I think I misstated it as 47. Yeah. What's that thing in the middle? Oh, good. Can we make it smaller? Okay. All right. Well, you're on bad terms with Adobe today, unfortunately. Well, anyway, this chart is one that came through to me last year, and I first did it by hand, and then I talked about it at last year's presentation. The reason I want to put it up again this year is because what it shows.
Saying Tom is muted.
What happened? Was I off for a while? Oh, okay. Within the framework of this universe, there are we're in the Milky Way galaxy, which is a relatively, I guess, a medium-sized galaxy. It was born out of Andromeda a number of billions of years ago. But in the entire universe of just this one, which is one of these interior circles, there are approximately 8,700,000,000,000 galaxies. 8,700,000,000,000 galaxies. That's and so I mean, it's mind-boggling, to think of. We are right in our galaxy. We are 23,000 light years from the galactic center, and we're sort of in the middle of it. And so, in terms of that, this is how large our universe is, and yet it's a finite thing, and it is one of not necessarily an infinite number, but a potentially infinite number of other universes. And what guidance has been that I've gotten is that the number of universes that are out there is greater than human capacity to count. And so we can count the 8,700,000,000,000 galaxies within this universe, but the number of universes we cannot even count. And so the creation is big. It's big, especially compared to where we are. But the reason I want to put this up is because the boundary around these, or the stuff within which all these universes exist, or manifested, is called, as you'll see in the purple lettering, the joyful realm of infinite imagination, infinite illumination, and infinite creation. And so the emphasis there is on joyful. That is from the information that came through in regard to all this last year, that is the preeminent quality and feature. And I will, Dan, if you can go to number 13 on the yeah, we'll put it sideways, and then we can figure out how to straighten it later. I don't know. All right. So the number 13 is what we got. It's called the three immutable laws of origin, and origin is that which all this other stuff comes from. And number one is joy. Number one is joy is immutable and necessary for coherent and stable expansion. Joy is immutable, and joy is necessary for coherent and stable expansion. Yeah. And what we can do is when we put the video up, can we possibly rearrange the stuff so people can see the stuff then? I don't know. I'll work with okay, all right. Well, we could set up a separate file to put with it. And the number 2 and 3 are creation is immutable and continuous, and expansion is immutable and continuous. But I think it's significant that joy is the number 1 element, or immutable law of origin, is what we were told.
Hola, amor.
Yeah, you need an acrobat to do that, apparently. The immutable means it's not subject to change. Right, right. The next thing we got was that what I referred to was as the 5 fundamental elements of creation. That's number 14, Dan. Not that it matters. I think it's just as well not to put them up. It's just confusing. The 5 fundamental elements of creation are, number 1, joy. Number 1, joy is number 1 on both of the lists. The derivatives of joy are things like love, happiness, ecstasy, humor, and so forth. Number 2, autonomy, derivatives of autonomy, free will, responsibility, authority, and so forth. Number 3, appreciation, derivatives of that are gratitude, reverence, devotion, worship. Number 4, geometry, from which we get forms, relationships, symmetry, all sorts of things like that. And number 5, going back to how we started the program today, music, from which we get frequency, harmony, resonance, beauty. But joy, again, is number 1. It's the most fundamental element of creation, and it is the most immutable law of origin. So and I know, I feel like a fairly happy guy myself. I've had a good life. I've been very lucky. I have a place to sleep. I have good friends. I have close loved ones and so forth. But do I go through my day, like twinkle toeing around and smiling and laughing all the time? No, I don't, because the world is too much with us, and we would all be better if we kept these things more in our mind and were less burdened by the weight of the world, as it were. Some of the things I would like to go through that, and rather than put them up, I'll just review them verbally. There's a social, philosophical, spiritual commentator who I would recommend to anyone who's become quite well known in recent years, named Rupert Spira. Rupert Spira is an Englishman who spent most of his life as a potter. He made pots and so forth, and became quite well known in that until he was about 50 years old, and then he had his studio caught fire and burned, and he decided he wanted to go off and become a spiritual commentator. And he's really one of the most eloquent voices out there. He's written a few books. He's written one recently about happiness, and there's some, and he has a absolutely wonderful way with words. His name, for reference, is Rupert. You don't hear too many famous Ruperts. Rupert Brooke was the last one I remember. He was a poet during the World War I era. Oh, Rupert Sheldrake. Excuse me, I forgot about him. And his last name, I'm sorry? Spira, S-P-I-R-A. And so one of his remarks, and I've taken down verbatim some of his statements because they so well bear on what we're here about today. Here's one: joy, happiness, and peace are the essential nature of your being, and you share your being with everyone else, all other beings. So if I give you these just simply to allow them to sift into your consciousness, and you can carry them around with you and so forth. And again, this goes back, the next one, and the next series I will go back to the remarks I made about the perspective that we have framing our experience and creating our understanding of our experiences. We have no evidence that anything we see around us exists anywhere except in our consciousness. Now, this harks back. Most of you remember Jane Roberts, who was a channel back in the 60s and 70s, who came out with in 1970 or so the Seth materials, or Seth Speaks. I can't remember. One was a year or two earlier than the other, and then there was one she came out with in the later 70s called The Unknown Reality, and in that, Seth, who is, as I understand it, is what in the Michael teachings framework would be a mid-causal level consciousness. Seth indicated that all of our exploration for the smallest particle and so forth, the building block of creation, was headed in the wrong direction. There wasn't a quark. It's not a Higgs boson. There is no, and the actual, what we are now looking for and calling the God particle, which the Higgs boson is being referred to as, is what Seth referred to as a CU, a consciousness unit. In other words, all of creation is consciousness. That's all it is, and it's built of consciousness units, and so when this statement, we have no evidence that anything we see around us exists except in our consciousness, and the reason is we only have our consciousness to determine whether anything exists. In our framework, we go from matter to mind to spirit, or matter to mind to consciousness. And when in actuality, it's just the opposite of that. Consciousness is first, then mind, then matter. But we're going about it exactly backwards. Here's another one I think will grab you a bit. You are not in the world. The world is in you. So every interaction we have, if we touch an object, we touch another human being, the only thing we have, we touch, we have a sensation that triggers something in our brain, and we have what we interpret as consciousness. But it's only in our consciousness that reality exists. We don't know and can't say that anything outside of our consciousness is real or exists at all, except as a extension of our consciousness. Another one. The world, the universe, exists only in your consciousness. Same thing. Another one. Things don't have existence. Existence has things. And I see these statements sound simplistic, but if you let the meanings of them infiltrate your barriers, your ways of looking at things backwards, and let them get them right side up, you begin to see that the world is the world is a very different place than we imagine it to be. Here's another one. Mind is not an emergent property of the brain, the brain is an emergent property of mind. And that's, of course, just the opposite from what we're taught. We've had in philosophy since Aristotle and Plato, we've had what is referred to as the hard problem, the mind-body problem, and which comes first. And if we accept that it's matter and then it's mind and then it's consciousness, and scientists debate who has consciousness, and if we look at it the other way around, there isn't anything that isn't conscious, because we're all just floating in a sea of consciousness. Next one, consciousness is not an emergent property of matter. Matter, or the appearance of matter, is an emergent property of consciousness. Another one. In the pre-egoic stage, consciousness is merged into experience. In the post-egoic stage, experience is merged into consciousness. And I realized last night when I was looking these things over that I wanted to create one of my own, because we're not necessarily we're not in the pre-egoic stage, but we're not necessarily in the post-egoic stage either. We're still in the between space, and so we're in that space where we can experience both pre-egoic consciousness and some post-egoic consciousness, but we don't necessarily carry ourselves around in post-egoic consciousness all the time, and so matter is different for us than it is in either one of those. Consciousness veils itself within its own creativity, or alternatively, consciousness appears to be veiled by its creativity. Consciousness is one, that in which experience appears; two, that with which experience is known; three, that out of which experience is made. And last one, the only substance consciousness ever comes into contact with is itself. All right. I think I'm at the end of my first portion now, and I'm going to turn it over to my partner in crime, and my better half, Rosa Isabel Pinto Puentes. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you hear me well? Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Isabel Pinto, and I am very, very excited to be here today. Okay. Can you hear me better? Okay. So it is a privilege to be here. This is a great moment in my life, and I am so happy to share it with you guys, to you here in present and here, and the ones that are joining us via Zoom. We are here to talk today about joy, and yeah. Okay, thank you. So we are here today to talk about joy and to feel joy and to experience joy, alegría. When we were talking about the topic for today, I was like, wow, joy and how to bring it to the world. That's a big word, joy. So I started to think about my experiences and the moments in my life when I have experienced joy and how that happens. I have experience with different practices like meditation, shamanic rituals, and plant medicines, different states of joy and happiness. In my daily life, I also experience joy. I am so lucky to have a job where I can witness magic moments, and I also be part of those magic moments. You know, I work at a hospital as a Spanish medical interpreter, and you know, in a daily basis, a kid comes and smiles to me, or I see a baby being born, or I see and I witness the strength and the resilience of so many different men and women that go through so much, and they do it with such grace, and that fills my heart with joy. And I get those moments too in a daily, you know, when I go to nature and I go for a walk and I see a beautiful butterfly, a beautiful bird, you know, the trees are dancing with the wind, and that makes me very, very happy. It makes me feel very connected. And then I realized that the joy that I feel is not necessarily because a kid is smiling to me, or a butterfly is, you know, shows up, or a bird, or the dance of the trees, but because this is our real nature, the real state of our minds. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. So when we allow ourselves to get rid of what we think we are, you know, what the problems that we have, the worries, when we let them go, we enter in that state of peace and happiness, because that's what we really are. So when we are in that state, we realize that we are that we own that right to be happy, to be feel calm and relaxed. Okay, so everything that we are not, everything that we are is calm, is joy, is happiness. Everything that we are not is painful. Everything that we are not is what prevents us to live, to flow in life easily and confidently. We all want to create and enjoy a state of well-being, tranquility, and happiness. Sometimes it happens, but not always. Life is not easy. We all have problems. But the main problem is that we identified with those problems and we assume them as our reality. Sip of water. So we have to remember that we are not the problems. And again, if we let go of what we are not, we discover ourselves and remember whom and what we are. And then we don't have to search any further. We don't have to pretend or want to be somebody else that we are not. We can simply recognize that we are God, that we are divine, and that we have an ocean of joy within us. Yes, it is not easy to navigate life and to unleash that power, the power of who really are, and have those certainties that we own everything, that we are everything. Meditation is a great way to do it, at least for me. It helps us to let go of worries, to feel ourselves, to be present, to recognize our own and real nature, to attain a very pleasant state of calm and wellness. And if intentionally we meditate not only on calm and relaxation, but on positive thoughts such as kindness, love, gratitude, then we feel really great. Because when there is a positive feeling of this caliber in our minds and our hearts, then we physically generate and release hormones of love, happiness, that makes us feel the joy that is inherent in us. It has been known and scientifically proven with professional meditators that the practice of meditation generates a lot of joy. I am far from being a dedicated meditator, but I do know that when I let go of my worries, when I enter a state of gratitude, I feel deeply rooted and I access a very special calm, peace and joy. What I would like us to do today is to take a few minutes to meditate in gratitude and generosity, and hope that not only the effect and benefit of our meditation will reach everyone, everywhere, but that one day we all find and accept our own divinity for the good of all beings. So let's just sit comfortably and take a big exhale to expel the stale air from our lungs. Notice the sensations of your body and just relax. You can close your eyes if you want. Once you are aware of your body and you're relaxed and present, focus on your breathing. Notice the movement of the body as the air goes in and out naturally without forcing anything. And just be aware of the exhalation. Each time we breathe out, consciously we let go of what we are not. We let go of worries, of fear, of guilt, expectations. Let go of everything that you are not. Now that we feel good, relaxed, and at ease, recognize the feeling, the emotion. We are going to dedicate ourselves to a very positive and very important feeling, gratitude. We are alive, sitting here, thanks to others, Mother Earth, our parents, those who work really hard so we can feed ourselves, clothe ourselves, and have everything we need. Friends, people who have given us a hand in times of difficulty, people that are there for us when we need them, going out of their ways to help. If we think of all the things that we can be thankful for, the list is endless. Gratitude is being aware of all the goodness, of all the good that surrounds us, of all that we have given, that we have been given. So first of all, just feel gratitude and let it flow easily. Now imagine visualize and feel a ball of light in your hearts. That radiates love. And now we are going to send back the love to all those beings, to nature, to God, to the divine within us and others, to everything and everyone, everywhere. From gratitude comes love. Love that will return to all people that love us, to all beings. So whenever you go on your daily life and you feel that you are so full of problems and that it's impossible to fix this or that, go back to this feeling of gratitude. Gratitude is a feeling that is work within us. It deserves to be awakened within us, because it is a feeling that becomes reality and also brings us closer to our true nature. Knowing that gratitude brings us closer to love, and all this gratitude, love, peace, joy, that makes us become who we are. Gratitude brings love and freedom, the freedom to be unique and magical, and therefore we can do magic. Our magic is to make that light we carry inside grow. And that spark that makes flares of happiness and love is magic. And that magic touches lives, the lives of people that we live with. I am grateful for you all. I am grateful for this opportunity to face my fears, to experience life and love. I'm grateful for the failures and the successes. I'm grateful for waking up every day, knowing that I matter, that we all matter. That if I recognize my divinity, I expand myself and I do what I am here to do. Thank you. Tom is going to do an exercise that has to do with opening our hearts and just feel connected and feel the one that we are. And for that, I would like to play a song that we play. It's a medicine song we play in ceremonies, in shamanic ceremonies, and it's to open our hearts. So then, if you can bring it up, the song is in Spanish, but the lyrics are there. So you can close your eyes and just immerse yourselves in the voice and the sound and the meaning of this song.
Ábrete sentimiento, ábrete entendimiento, deja a un lado la razón y deja brillar el sol, escondido en tu interior. Ábrete memoria antigua, escondida en la tierra, en las plantas, bajo el fuego, bajo el agua. Ábrete corazón, ábrete sentimiento, ábrete entendimiento, deja a un lado la razón y deja brillar el sol, escondido en tu interior. Es tiempo ya es ahora. Ábrete corazón y recuerda como el espíritu cura, como el amor sana, como el árbol florece y la vida perdura, que para llegar a Dios hay que aprender a ser humano. Ábrete corazón, ábrete sentimiento, ábrete entendimiento, deja a un lado la razón y deja brillar el sol, escondido en tu interior.
You can carry on now. So, no. Thank you.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Well, Price, why don't you come on up and speak into the microphone?
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's great to emphasize, appreciate joy, love, especially this time of year. But how do we balance this out when we read about Ukraine shootings, famine? Do we just be a Pollyanna and turn our back on all this, or how do we handle it?
Well, we want to change the world, right? We wish we can fade all of those problems, but that's not possible. But I think what we can do is just to change ourselves, to begin by accepting the things that how they are, and to change our reality. There are so many realities in the world: crime, pain, suffering, but there is love. And we cannot change the pain and the war, but we can change the love if we allow it to happen, if we bring it up in our daily lives, in our every moment. If each of us does that, I think that intention is going to expand. And I don't know, I wish I can change that, but when I read that, I just send love to those people, love to those moms that are losing their kids in the war, those kids that are losing their parents, or even the kids that are losing their lives. That is the only thing I can do. And I think that is the only thing we can do. Because if we don't, then we're going to we are going to make that energy of anger and injustice just grow. So that is my option. I think that is what I can do. I don't know.
Price, I would agree with that. I would. That doesn't mean that I wouldn't support sending arms to Ukraine to defend themselves, but I think we combine that with what Isabel was just talking about. So, yes, Suzanne.
I'd share your concerns about that. You know, how much of my time am I going to spend saving the world from bad people, you know? I use Jesus as my reference point here. He was the embodiment of love.
Mm-hmm.
But when he went to the temple, he got mad and he chased the money changers out.
Right. That's why I would not stop sending arms to Ukraine to support themselves.
So I think we can balance it. I think we can be good soldiers about our government and about the evils. I think we can be generous, giving to good causes to help the poor. We can work in soup kitchens. But I think for myself, I need to balance my stress about the world and my trying to save the world with joy. You know, need to balance that. And I need to have a better balance of that because I stay mad a lot.
Totally agree.
Certain bad actors in the world.
Right.
But I try to pray for this certain bad actor.
But this stuff is contagious, you know. If we carry around a dark cloud with us, that's contagious. If we carry around a big smile, that's contagious as well.
Right. I think balance.
Right. Marva?
Hi. I would echo the same thing, saying it's what we do. But when I think of that, I'm like, as long as human beings have been on this earth, have we not caused chaos? Have we not had fighting, famine, war? It is something that is always with us. Not that it wouldn't be wonderful to have a nice, quiet, peaceful world, but I think that is unfortunately the reality. But we equally have beauty, and it's what we give our attention to, but not that we would say, don't pay attention to war or bad stuff. But if you are given some energy, if you're donating to a cause, and I'm guilty of doing that, where you see things going on and they say, you know, for your donation of $20 a month, and I'm like, sometimes, you know, flip. But if you do have a cause that you give to, and I think that a lot of different denominations, belief systems have that built in, where they start off with some type of like, for example, the Mormons, that they send their people out for 2 years, and so they understand service and given, and it's built in. But I think we sometimes do it only in our churches, or a little bit United Way, or we put in a salvation bucket and we think we're done. So if you actively give, I think that helps, but to know that there is both in the world, and both deserve, you know, equal attention.
Well, Marva, what you're referring to, you know, when you're quite a bit younger than I am, but
Little bit.
But when both of us were growing up, we were taught that these kinds of habits were just human nature. And I think most of us in this room, in this audience, are aware that the fact that things have always been this way doesn't mean that they always will be this way. And there is the world today is full of all sorts of flaws, but it's a much less hostile environment than it was in the past. And
We're more aware of it also
we're more
because
aware
of
of it,
media.
and we're more aware of the possibility of changing it. And so that's part of the expansion process. Consciousness is expanding, souls are evolving, and so forth. And so the fact that and we today, in my opinion, are on the cutting edge of what may be a new period of enlightenment, you know, in which that which has been human nature for our known history will no longer be. So, thank you. Yeah, Buck.
Good morning. I liked your message, and I agree with it. I think I have a little bit of different perspective on some of it. You started out with the unification of us with our God selves, and I think that's very right. But I think that, and it is said that we are gods, but I think that when I think of it that way, it appeals to my vanity. And I think that I can do whatever I want to do, and I'm God, but I'm not. None of us are God. We have the opportunity to join God and to be joined in his message for the world, which is what you're saying. It seems as though. And that's love. And when you talk about joy as being predominant, that joy brings love. There's an old Temptation song that I'm sure you remember, and it's love can be a merry-go-round, but a merry-go-round can't be love. Love can be a disaster, but a disaster cannot be love. Nothing can be love but love, and love, I think, is the predominant essence of the spirit that we all share, and is the most important message, and that we get joy with that.
You and I can argue for probably at least a year or two.
I wouldn't argue with
you. But we're really talking differences of semantics, I think. You know, about
different of perspective on the same event.
Right, exactly.
Which is what you were talking about as well. And a good example of that for all of us that watch sports is, how many times have you seen the replay? Okay, they show it from many different angles. It's the same event. The guy going, kicking the ball into the net.
Yeah.
But in one
of them, he caught the pass inbounds, and the other one he didn't.
Exactly. So you can be on the field, you can be in the viewing audience, or you can be the TV audience, and everybody has a little bit different perspective. So I think, You were saying also mind versus conscious. Is that correct? Were you
Not versus consciousness.
But-
Mind is an emergent property of consciousness.
my question when you said that is, where is spirit? And is that all spirit?
Spirit and consciousness, I would say, are the same thing.
So is mind where we're here in this world, but the consciousness is the spirit, which predominates over everything?
I would not distinguish between spirit and consciousness.
Okay, all right.
Right.
Thank you very much. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you. Hey, Al. Hey, Al.
It's really nice to be among friends again. Haven't been here in a
Been
while.
hiding up there in the hills. You know, they come down more often.
I'm sure Isabel will know this reference from Carlos Castaneda, I believe. Changing the world is an inside job. And when I remember that, I remember a practice that I learned a long time ago that might address what Price was saying, calling to our attention. And that is that
Pablo Neruda.
Pablo Neruda, yes, not, yes, thank you for correction. When I recall that whatever problem I have is a result of somehow I have separated from the unity that governs the universe.
Mm-hmm.
When I remember that I have separated in some way in mind, in emotion, in action, I remember a practice that I have learned a long time ago about reunifying, about feeling the unity of all things and having that sense of union penetrate all the cells of my body. And I practice something called the principle of concentricity, which is when I fill all the cells of my body filled with that union, that love, that remembrance of the unity of all things, I walk around and my energy field is broadcasting through that principle of concentricity. So I'm affecting every molecule of existence that I'm walking through.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how
I would say you're affecting every molecule of existence everywhere.
Trying to keep it real, Tom. Trying to keep it.
I don't want that to go to your head or anything, though.
Try to keep it grounded to each of us. But the point that I'm making is that when I experience some kind of judgment about the chaos in the world, and I remember that I can hold the union, the memory of union, and I fill all my cells with it and walk around with that feeling, I'm touching everything that exists. And that gives me joy.
Thank you, Al. I don't know whether we have time for it. I was going to do a little time travel exercise if you all were interested. Would you all have an interest in doing something like that? It might take us about 10 minutes over time, but as some of you know, I had one of my other lifetime experiences was one that came crashing down on me in the early spring of 1994, when I and my late wife Christina and our child Victoria, who I just, by the way, just got married last weekend. I officiated the wedding out in Denver, Colorado. It was a wonderful experience, and I thought she showed incredible maturity by deciding to have a wedding with only the family and so forth, rather than a big, expensive do. And in any event, we were in. It was my first trip to Poland. My Christina was from Poland, and we were. She is from Gdansk, up what the Germans call Danzig, and we were. She was showing me around the country a bit. And so we were going down to Krakow, the old capital of the country, and took a train from Gdansk to Warsaw, which is about midway from north to south, and got off the train, had lunch, and then got back on a train to go to Krakow. Each leg of the ride was 3.5, 4 hours, and we were not more than 10 minutes out of the station in Warsaw when I started going into what I recognized was an altered state experience. And the reason I recognized it was we were in a compartment with just the three of us. Victoria at the time was 18 months old, and I started seeing what are called phosphenes, the stars you see when you sneeze or cough sometimes, and I was not sneezing or coughing. And from prior experiences, I realized this. I was going into some altered state, so I excused myself and went into the hallway. And when I and as I got out there, I was my consciousness was above the earth on a lit up grid, and the grid started to disintegrate, and I started to sink down into whatever this other place was. I had no idea where I was going to be. It turned out to be on another train in a boxcar, a crowded boxcar, and I was a 11-year-old or 12-year-old Jewish boy, orphan, and was in the last group being picked up out of the Warsaw Ghetto in the late '43, in the fall of '43 or so, and we were being taken to what was referred to as the New Land, which turned out to be Auschwitz, and so we got there during the night. The train stopped, and during that course of that experience, I went back and experienced the childhood of the boy and the life in the ghetto and all that. And his mother had died at childbirth. His father had run off before. It turned out I learned through channeling that the father was a gypsy, and that's why he didn't hang around for the birth, because he was not. Even the gypsy father was not even. He was an outcast even among the Jews, and so anyway. But I was still Jewish because in Jewish tradition you take your culture from your mother, and so anyway, I grew up in a Jewish orphanage until the war came, and then was in the ghetto from 7 to 11. And so we got there, we stayed in the car, which was shoulder to shoulder in the car, and in the morning the Gestapo came and pulled us off the train, and the able-bodied people went in one direction, and the older people and the children went in another direction, which turned out to be the gas chamber. And so we did the. As soon as we got in there, I was being young, realized that we were being killed, and was able to leave my body as soon as the Zyklon B started coming out of the sprinklers. Of course, I didn't know what it was then, but I do now. And what happened then turned out to be the apex of that lifetime, in that as I left my body, I realized that the number one, most of the people around me were in denial about what was going on. They did not know they were dying, and so they were stuck. And then I realized the entire chamber was literally jam packed with souls, thousands and thousands of souls of people who had died previously in that gas chamber and did not know they were dying. And so what, as I say, what became the apex and perhaps in one of the major purposes of the lifetime, other than to be a witness to the atrocities of the Holocaust, was that I was able to lead all those souls into that gas chamber, and it was sort of like the story of the Pied Piper, because I had to make several trips back and forth to what my friend Bob Monroe referred to as the reception center, leading them and pulling them, and then going back and getting more and getting all this. But finally cleared the whole thing, and I don't know how many thousands there were, but quite a number. And then that was a very profound experience for me. I did not even realize until I asked afterwards whether that Auschwitz was quite near to Krakow, and that I learned too that the track we were on was exactly the same track that the train I'd been on in 1943 had been on, and so I guess the ghostly imprint of those souls that crossed that track was what triggered the whole experience. In any event, I told this story to a friend January 28th of 2019 in my kitchen at my home, and many of you have been to my home. There was a fellow and a male and female people there. The woman I'd not met previous to that, become good friends since then. And as I told the story, they'd come over for dinner. It was a Monday night, and as they were getting ready to leave, he said, "Well, tell her the story about that life in the Warsaw Ghetto and so forth." So I said, "Okay." So I told, and we were standing. They'd gotten up to leave, so we were actually standing in the kitchen. I was at one end of a corner of the table. The woman was to my left, between the table and the food bar, and the man was to my right, towards the den. And as I finished the story and told about the rescue of the souls, we looked down, and suddenly the floor in the kitchen was covered with water. It was about 100 square feet of flooring that was covered with water. Nothing was spilled. Nothing. The dog hadn't, done anything to knock his water bowl over. There wasn't any leak or anything else. And when we looked down, the water was not under our shoes. It was around our shoes. If you pick your foot up, it filled it in. It just appeared as the story was being told in the room, and we tasted it, and it had a bodily fluid type taste and texture to it, a viscosity, very unlike tap water, for instance. And in fact, a couple of days later, I just experimenting, tried to figure out how much volume of water it took to cover that area, and it was about a gallon of water. And we all got the same download at the same time, and then that was that this represented tears of joy and gratitude from those souls that had been rescued from that gas chamber in 1943, right? And so since then, I got to thinking about that, and I thought, well, that was in 43. That same chamber would have been used many more times by the end of the war, and there were a couple of others there, and there were chambers like that all over the Reich. So I thought, those chambers were at the end of the war were jam packed with souls that were stuck there, and those souls, in terms of what you were saying, Price, about the negative energy and all this stuff, those souls will represent something like a power structure of negative energy that forces can actually feed on and use to energize things like the invasion of Ukraine or all sorts of other things. And so it occurred to me, why don't I start going back to March, April of 1945 and start working on clearing those chambers so that they would not have that source to feed on. And I started working on that, about a year or so ago. And I was told by Chandler, who knows how real this is or whether it's reliable. But I was told at some point in the course of this year that I so far had cleared about 25% of the souls out of those chambers as they existed at the end of the war. And so I thought if people in this group might be game, we could do a group consciousness is much more powerful than an individual. And so we can take a few minutes, if you will, and we can project our consciousness back to 1945, mid-March 1945. And we don't have to go to a specific chamber. We can simply project back to that time and intend that we're going to release all those souls that are trapped in all those gas chambers across the whole Third Reich. So I invite you, anyone who wishes to participate, close your eyes, just take a couple of deep breaths. And this is, and if this is something I would also invite you to continue working with after we finish today, if you wish. Let's take about 3 deep breaths and relax and get ourselves centered and know that we are working in unison here today. Know that we're working out of love. Know that we're working out of joy. And know that we're working to alleviate pain, suffering, hatred, cruelty, and so forth in the world. And so as we be in that state, working as this group in unison, and then invite those online to join us as well, imagine ourselves as a group going back in time and realizing that time is not really real. It's really just a construct that we create in order to distinguish events from one another. And so being back in time is just the same as being right here now. It's just another now. And we can project ourselves to that now as we intend. And we are now hovering over the Third Reich with our consciousness extending out to each and every gas chamber in the Reich, each and every one, and sending love and liberation to those souls and letting them know that their physical lives have ended and it is now time for them to be drawn out of those chambers and drawn to the light and drawn on to the next incarnation. As we do this, we know that as of later on, they would all have gone, but we're going to do it and give them a little bit of a head start that they didn't have before. Imagine them being drawn up as in unison in a long line, going from wherever they are, taking steps, finding their way to the light, finding their way. And then they're all there. And if we should wake up one day and something like the invasion of Ukraine didn't happen, or the COVID pandemic didn't happen, we will know that this exercise has succeeded. Take a bit, 3 or 4 deep breaths. And come back to here. Anybody feel anything? I know I did. I'm going to excuse me. I'm going to end with the same way I've ended this once or twice before, with a recitation of the message about love that was channeled to me by my own guides 30 years ago this year. It's the answer to my inquiry, what is love? Most people think that love is good, and that bad things like hate, fear, anger, envy, greed, deceit, etc., are the opposites of love, or evidence of its absence. They are neither, however. The truth is, love has no opposite and is never absent. Love, like life itself, is simply all that is, nothing more, nothing less. Those chimeras some call love's opposites are only love's masks and mirrors to souls as yet unawakened to its true nature and their own. Each of love's supposed opposites can be defined, but who can define love? No one, because, like consciousness, love defines us. We do not define it. Love is the perfect unison within all apparent polarities and guides us in all we do and are, even as we least suspect it. Love enables us to recreate and relive past patterns and to relinquish and transcend those patterns when we are finally prepared to accept and embrace the fullness of the present. Love is at once ubiquitous and inescapable, and it nurtures and sustains us in infinite unseen ways that always exceed the wildest of our expectations, the clearest of our perceptions, the profoundest of our judgments. Love cannot and never will be captured by the words of any language we conjure or create to describe or limit it, even by calling it good. More intriguing, more compelling, and to some more baffling than the greatest detective story ever told, love at every moment offers at our fingertips clues of its imminent caress. Just as cosmologists have discovered the quintessential nature of time is translinear, the essence of love, once discovered, is transpolar and omnipresent. The more we knowingly experience love's seamless tapestry in our lives, the more wonderfully mysterious its intricate and elegant handiwork becomes. Love is, beneath all, the deepest mystery of who we are and all that is, and one we shall never fully unravel, no matter how much light the windows of our awareness may shed upon it. Hail to the mystery. Thank you, everybody. You've been a wonderful, wonderful audience today.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing the same ideas and the same love.
Suzanne, you got a question? I think it's a great idea. We can do that. Yeah. I've done that a few times myself. This piece here is something it was channeled to me. I wrote it down. I can't take authorship credit for it. I give it to my author, Taliesen St. Clair, but it is something that I read it more. I read it repetitiously because I read it myself at least once a month, sometimes more frequently than that, and it never ever ceases to have meaning for me. I often read it aloud to myself because the words resonate so deeply. So, thank you.
But also, Susanna, I think that we don't have to wait for next year. We can do it every time. And instead of being so angry about what is going on, we should just think it in a different way, because what is out is within us. So we have to recognize that. And if we bring up that kindness and love and gratitude, then somehow, even if we don't see it right away, somehow things change,
Joy to the world, everyone. Namaste.
Thank you all for being on Zoom. I'm going to end the program now.